Hey everybody, this is 22 Tiger Dude. Welcome to Animation Domination Reviews, and I'm here to review the Bob's Burgers episode, The Equestronauts. So, this episode is about when Tina is obsessed with this television show called The Equestronauts. It obviously does a parody to the show that's in our generation, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which is a show that I really love. Comic-Con convention for the show going on, but she didn't realize it was going to be full of middle-aged men, where Tina is tricked into giving her rare pony toy. And so, because of that, and because that rare toy is just worth a fortune, Bob has to go out of his way to go undercover and try to get back Tina's rare pony toy. This Bob's Burgers episode is a pleasant surprise. I wasn't so sure about this episode. And I mean, it does a parody of, personally, one of my favorite cartoons to come out in this generation, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So I will say, for one thing, the show does such an intelligent job actually doing a parody of it, and I thought how it parodies that was really funny, and I truly respect the writers of this episode for that. The episode actually does have a lot of funny moments. I was finding myself just having a blast, having a ton of fun. The storyline was actually very well written. It does a clever job of adding all the humor, and Bob being undercover with the Equestricals, that's what they call the bronies in this generation. That's what they call the bronies, the Equestricals, and that was really cool. That's really all I could say about the episode, to be honest. My only flaws with this episode is that Tina does get really annoying in a few moments. It was just a few moments, thank God, but those few moments are just like, okay, Tina, you're getting on my nerves. And another thing is the ending. It would have been lower, except the ending made me angry, but it got me satisfied. Here's why. The angry part is because after when Bob went through all of that shit just to get her rare toy back, all of a sudden Tina decides that she's moving on from the show. She's too old for it. She's not going to play with toys anymore. She's just packing everything up. But then Bob catches Tina. So the angry part was what Tina did. But the part that made me happy was when Bob forced her to play with the toy, because he even said after everything he went through, she's just gonna pack her toy and move on just like that. It's just like, that's all for nothing, and that is just so messed up on Tina's part. I mean, like, come on. He went through all that just to get his toy back for his own daughter. Huge respect to Bob, by the way. I'm going to give this Bob's Burgers episode a 9 out of 10. A clever job of parodying the animated series My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. But not only that, it was just a hilarious and very fun episode overall. Now I'm here to review the American Dad episode, She Will Survive. So, this episode is about when Stan fears that Haley isn't going anywhere in her future and that she has zero life skills. So Stan forces Haley to take a job as a bartender in Roger's attic. But then Avery Bullock, Stan's boss, is like Haley's #1 best customer. And so because of that, he can use Haley's own knowledge to get ahead of work, and there's a possibility that Haley could get killed. So in my opinion, this American Dad episode was actually a good one. I had a lot of fun watching it. It was just very well done overall, and it was just a very entertaining time. Obviously, things aren't really the same with Haley since Jeff isn't with her anymore. But I mean, it was a nice, clever take. The moments where she's serving as a bartender was cool to see. And Bullock, for a while, it was interesting to see him be Haley's best customer. But then after that, you could see how much it's really affecting Haley. And plus, it does kind of make the episode feel dragged out, which is one of my flaws with the episode. And then there was this interesting concept where Bullock and the rest of the CIA could go hunt down Haley and kill her, but of course Stan, as the father, was not gonna allow that to happen. There is a subplot with Klaus, Snot, and Steve, and it's when he sits down with them to watch this movie called Das Boots. But Steve and Snot don't get all the references to German folklore. So of course Klaus has to introduce them to other stuff in order to understand the references in the movie Das Boot. One of my flaws with this episode personally is that plot. I just didn't care too much for it. When it started out, it was entertaining. It was funny. I liked the way Klaus said, "What?" for like the first couple of times. But then after that, it's like the same thing. It's a rinse and repeat plot, and it keeps doing the same thing. Even at the ending, it's the same damn thing. I would rather much go back to the whole Haley Stan plot and the whole shenanigans that's happening. It was a pointless rinse and repeat plot, and it just didn't need to be here in this episode at all, in my opinion. Another flaw I have with this episode is how there's a lot of drunk jokes, and like, once again, it gets really entertaining, but then after a while, they just kept going and going and going, and it's all like, it gets so unbelievably tiresome. Finally, the finale, the final few minutes of the episode, I think the last 3 or 4 minutes, it's when Stan and Haley are running away from the CIA, and it's the two of them being drunk. Let's just say, starting from that point, the episode just loses a step. The finale did kill it a little, but the episode is still entertaining enough for me to give it a 7 out of 10. I was going to almost go a 6.5, but whatever. I'll forgive the finale a little, just because, for the most part, I did have a lot of fun with this episode. I laughed plenty of times, and overall, it was just really enjoyable, and it's what American Dad should do. Now I'm here to review the Simpsons episode, Days of Future Future. Ironic, because obviously, Days of Future Past, get it? Okay, anyways. Apparently, from what I read, this episode is a sequel to Future Drama, yet a continuation to Holidays of Future Past. The plot to this episode is that Homer keeps dying and dying and dying. He has been dying so many times, but that's because Professor Frink has this little machine where he could just clone another Homer. But then it gets to the point where Homer is now on some television screen, and Marge doesn't want anything to do with Homer. Bart's plot is about when he wants to get his feelings from his ex-wife Jenda out. He doesn't want to remember Jenda anymore. As for Lisa's plot, Lisa actually falls more in love for Milhouse when he's a zombie. Yeah, because Milhouse gets bitten by a homeless zombie, and before that, Lisa just wasn't all that interested in Milhouse. So now she must decide whether she wants her own husband, Milhouse, to get cured, or for him to stay a zombie. I just gotta get this out of the way. This is one of the worst Simpsons episodes of the season. It was boring, it was stupid, it was lame, and it was just a lazy episode. And you know me, I love The Simpsons, and the season overall has actually been very good in my opinion. But this episode just didn't do it justice for me. And especially with how fantastic the Christmas episode, Holidays of Future Past was. Man, that was a terrific episode. But this episode, not even close to being great. Lisa's plot is so unbelievably stupid. It was infuriating, and it was just not entertaining at all. That plot nearly bored me to death. Maybe one part of it made me laugh, but that was it. I just didn't buy into it. It was ridiculous, and I mean, come on. It really wasn't all that creative, to be honest. Even when the episode starts off, it gets to a terrible start. The first 5 minutes was very bad. It's just you seeing the same thing with Homer dying, then another Homer clone comes and he dies and he dies. First of all, I didn't get the point of that. It didn't make any sense. And that one was not even funny to me too. After that was done though, I was hoping this episode would get so much more better. And unfortunately, it does not. I think the plot I probably thought was the most enjoyable is probably Bart's plot. But that plot is not even good. It's not even that good. It's not even okay. It's still a boring plot. None of the plots in this episode are memorable, are terrific. They're not clever. They're not well written. I almost fell asleep watching this episode. A Simpsons episode is not supposed to make me want to fall asleep. When I watch a Simpsons episode, because I'm a huge fan of the show, I'm supposed to be entertained, have fun with the storylines, have fun with the characters, and the humor. Really, the only positive I could say about this episode is that there are funny moments here and there. It was just not very good. I was not very interested. Big disappointment. I'm gonna give the Simpsons episode, unfortunately, a 4 out of 10. It was pretty freaking terrible. Now I'm here to review the Family Guy episode, The Most Interesting Man in the World. So this episode is about when Lois asks Peter to take Stewie out to the park for father-son quality time, but then of course, Peter, being stupid, he goes to the Drunken Clam to drink with his friends because obviously that's what Peter would rather do. Peter was so tempted, but he knew that if he left Stewie, that he would be in deep trouble. And so when Peter just couldn't hold that temptation, he rushes to the bar and he leaves Stewie alone. Then he comes home, he brings home the wrong baby. Lois, of course, gets pissed off. She calls Peter an idiot, which he is, but of course it's going to hurt Peter's feelings. So Peter wants to prove that he is a responsible adult, so when his boss Angela needs someone to go to Chicago to take care of some business, Peter wants to do that business trip to Chicago for Angela. After the business trip, Peter comes home as an intelligent and classy man, which makes Peter the most interesting man in the world who wants to see more of the world out there, exploring life. I actually really enjoyed this Family Guy episode. It had a well-written plot with well-written humor for the most part. It was just a very interesting episode because we all know Peter is the biggest idiot. And so when we hear an episode where he's intelligent, you're all like, huh, this could be interesting. I would love to see how Peter would be as an intelligent man. And honestly, it was very funny. The writing for this episode was really good, and it was funny when Peter left Stewie and he got the wrong baby. I did enjoy that part. The only way Peter's going to be an idiot again is if he goes on a business trip to that state and city where he turns into an idiot again. So overall, this really is just a refreshing Family Guy episode. It does have an interesting take on Peter being smart. Peter just being excited and exploring the world was definitely one of the huge positives of the episode. Because Lois is right, Peter should try exploring the world more often, because all Peter would rather do is sit his ass and watch TV. And I mean, come on, you only live life once, so just take advantage of it and just try to explore as much of the world as you can while you have it. So this episode does have a really good message about just exploring life, and I really dug that. Because I could totally agree. You don't want to just waste your life watching TV or be on the computer. There's nothing wrong with that, but you also just want to go out there, spend time with your family, your friends, go on a little trip, just do anything you need to just to really get a full satisfaction of life. My only fault of this episode is that some of the humor does fall flat, and this episode does use a couple of eyeball jokes. It was really gross and it really wasn't needed. It was used a couple of times. I didn't like that, but really not much wrong with this episode. I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting. It was funny for the most part, so I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.